joining us here on our set this morning is Tracy Malawana from Equal Education. Tracy, good morning and thank you very much for coming in.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the situation, I mean, we are far from some of these areas, and each time we hear of a pit latrine toilet disaster or tragedy, we're wondering what's going on. And the government has made statements in the past, and recently even Cyril Ramaphosa, the new president, saying pit latrines are going to be a thing of the past, but we're still dealing with this backlog. What's driving this? Why are they not getting to grips with it?
I think, okay, thank you so much for having me. Firstly, we as Equal Education have been doing some work around school infrastructure. You know that there's a law or a legislation called Minimum Norms and Standards for School Infrastructure, which state what a school should look like or what makes a school to be a school. So one of the things that we have been battling with is, engaging with government. Sometimes they'll go and do their research around, the stats of maybe the schools that do not have adequate infrastructure or sanitation. But you find out that there's loopholes. They don't even get the numbers right. You have NIMS having their own number or their own stats. You have ACD having their own stats. So those are some of the challenges that we are faced with. And I can say that maybe some of the reasons why we are struggling to address the Department of Basic Education is struggling to address these issues is because they are not working with the people on the ground, with the schools on the ground, and they are not even, communicating with the people who are faced with these issues.
But that's the question, Tracy, is how difficult can it be to find these schools, find the numbers? How hard can it be? Are the people in these areas, and we know the Eastern Cape, we see those pictures on the front pages all the time. You can't imagine our child learns in some of those facilities. We saw it happening in Limpopo as well. Is there a lack of will in those particular provinces, let alone the National Education Department? In those provinces, are we finding a problem with commitment?
We have a problem from the provincial, Department of Education. We have a problem from the Department of Basic Education. So I can say it seems like there's no will at all, because when we want to engage those departments, they don't even want to be engaged. We have to engage them through, affidavits, through court cases, which is frustrating for us as, young people. It's frustrating for our members who are school-going equalizers, So those are some of the things that we are battling with, is that the government wants to do their own thing somewhere, and they are not going on the ground to go and, look for those schools and also have, communicate with the school principals in those schools.
Okay, now, Tracy, we understand, of course, Equal Education has launched a report recently. I think it's called the Implementing Agents, the middlemen in charge of building schools. What are the key findings of this report? What is this report all about?
So the implementing agents, it speaks about the backlogs in the deep rural areas. So know that for years there have been schools that were supposed to be built, but they've been, communication from the Department of Basic Education saying that there's no sufficient funds from their side. And if you can take a look at some of the, the reports from each education department, you find that there's a lot of money that is not used, that is taken back to Treasury every year. So there's this plan is around addressing the backlogs within the school infrastructure.
So is it only budgetary constraints, or can it also be? You said earlier, they say there's no money, but they've got money for other stuff, but they're not talking to the communities. And I saw a report recently in one of the print media, saying that, for instance, in one school in Mvaba in the Eastern Cape, the parents now have decided to use their little monies to build a pit latrine because they've been waiting since 2012.
Yeah. Sorry, what was?
So the point is it only budgetary constraints, or are there other challenges?
I don't think there are budget constraints, but if we were to plan, if we were to engage with the people on the ground, and if we were to plan properly, then we're going to be able to address the issues in those schools. For instance, it's quite difficult for the Department of Education in all provinces to just publish their plans on how they are going to address the sanitation crisis in each province. So it's quite difficult for the principals. It's quite difficult for also other people within the school premises to also ask what's happening with when are you going to address the sanitation issue in our school?
And are there too many processes then, Tracy? Are we looking at things that there's too much, something shouldn't involve that many steps to be done, if I were to put it basically? And then also that I see there are issues with the performance of contractors and nobody's there to account for what's happening.
So I'd say that the Department of Basic Education is not doing this in a right way. Firstly, you need to engage with the people who are faced with that issue. And you need to understand what are their needs in that school. For instance, you can't just put a toilet there. You need to understand what kind of a toilet will be suitable for that specific school. So those are some of the things that you need to think about. Then secondly, you need to engage with the principal of the school to make sure that the infrastructure will be maintained, or those toilets will be maintained. Because we also have an issue that there are buildings that are built. They are good buildings, but few years down the line, they are no longer there. They collapse because there's no, there's no plan around maintenance. So those are some of the things they also need to think about. Then they also need to allocate money for maintenance for those schools, and also make sure that they evaluate the work that is being done by contractors. At the same time, they evaluate the progress of, or the usage of those.
So basically,
buildings.
it's all in the planning, the processing, and consultation that is not really happening. Thank you very much, Tracy Malawana from Equal Education.
Right.